James clutched his daughter's medicine tightly as he drove to the farm for his first shift. His daughter, Lily, needed the medicine to survive, and this job as a night security guard was the only way he could afford it. When he arrived, the farmer, a rugged, weathered man, greeted him silently and led him to the small office where he'd spend his nights.
"This is your post,"
the farmer said, pointing to the desk with monitors showing camera feeds from around the property. "The doors have electric locks. Once you're inside at night, you're safe. Just keep an eye on the cattle. Let me know if you see anything unusual." James nodded, thanking him for the opportunity. The farmer left without another word, and James settled into his chair, hoping for a quiet night. The first few hours passed uneventfully, the hum of the monitors keeping James awake. But near the end of his shift, movement on one of the screens caught his eye. A figure was creeping near the barn. It was hard to make out. Its movements were jerky and unnatural, its limbs seemingly too long for its body. James leaned in closer, but before he could see more, the figure disappeared into the shadows. Moments later, the cameras flickered and went to static. James's heart pounded, but before he could try to fix the feed, his alarm sounded. The shift was over. He sighed in relief as the electric locks disengaged with a soft click, grabbed his keys, and rushed home to give Lily her medicine, just in time. When James returned for his second shift, he found a note on his desk.
"Looking through the cameras, I've noticed something lurking around. Please inform me if you see anything. The robot machines are operational. They're used to feed the cattle and scare off intruders briefly. You can access them through the vent, but they're old and fragile, so use them sparingly. The farmer."
James felt a chill as he read the note, but pushed the thought aside and began his shift. Hours passed without incident until the figure appeared again, this time closer to the cattle. Deciding to act, James crawled through the vent to the robot controls. From the grates, he saw the intruder, but then it turned and looked directly at him. Panicking, James scrambled to activate the robots. They whirred to life, sending the figure retreating into the shadows. Near the end of the shift, James spotted it again, but this time it stood in front of a camera, staring directly into the lens with an eerie, unnatural smile. Then it disappeared. When his alarm rang, signaling the end of his shift, James rushed out as the electric locks disengaged and drove home to give Lily her medicine, just in time once again. The next morning, James called the police.
"We've had reports of strange intruders there back when the old owner was in charge. But they always disappeared quickly. If you see it again, leave immediately. Whatever it is, it's not good news."
The warning unnerved James, but he couldn't afford to quit. Lily's survival depended on him staying. Night 3. When the figure appeared again on the third night, James considered leaving, but thoughts of his daughter kept him at his post. He used the robots sparingly to scare the figure away from the cattle in the office. But just before the shift ended, the power went out. James froze as the electric locks disengaged with a faint click. He heard footsteps approaching the office. Panic surged through him as the intruder tried to force the door open. Its strength was terrifying, but James braced himself against the door, refusing to let it through. Just as his strength began to falter, the power flickered back on and the locks re-engaged. The cameras came back online, and James saw the figure standing outside the door before it vanished into the darkness. The next morning, James called the farmer, explaining what had happened.
"I need you to keep working. But if you think you're in danger, use the emergency exit in the back wall of the office. It's manual, so no worries about the power. If you try to finish the shifts but need to leave, I'll still pay you for the next 2 nights. For your daughter."
James thanked him, grateful for the understanding. James tested the emergency exit upon arrival. The door opened easily, which gave him a small sense of relief. Feeling slightly safer, he began his shift. The figure appeared again, lurking near the cattle. James hesitated, thinking of the farmer's warning, but he ultimately decided to use the robots one last time. He activated them, but a warning flashed on the screen.
"Robot overload, please reduce usage."
He crawled back to the office, but something felt off. The camera showed nothing, and the silence was oppressive. When his shift ended, James hurried home, relieved to have made it through another night. Night 5. When James entered the office, his stomach dropped. The place was trashed. A note sat on the desk.
I don't know what you did, but you've angered it. It's been trying to break in all day. I don't think it's after the cattle anymore. It's after you, the farmer.
James's heart raced as he began his shift. The robot room was destroyed and boarded off, leaving him without his only defense. Hours passed in tense silence, with the figure occasionally appearing on the cameras. Near the end of the shift, the figure stood outside his door. James could see it clearly now. It wasn't human. It was a monster, with impossibly long limbs and glowing eyes. The door rattled violently as it tried to get in. James ran to the emergency exit, but it was locked. He kicked and pushed at it desperately as the door behind him groaned under the pressure. When his alarm went off, signaling the end of the shift, the electric lock disengaged with a click. The monster burst through the door. James slammed against the emergency exit, breaking the hinges and escaping. He sprinted into the night, only to realize the figure had disappeared, just like always at the end of his shift. Nervously, he walked back to the office where the farmer was waiting. James explained everything. The farmer apologized profusely, paid him extra, and promised the nightmare was over. For once, James felt free, until he realized he'd left Lily's medicine inside. James couldn't abandon Lily. He ran back into the office and grabbed the medicine. But when he glanced at the cameras, his blood ran cold. The monster was inside. Zooming in, he saw it was in the office. Slowly, he turned, and there it was, staring at him, smiling. Hours later, the farmer entered the office. James's body lay mangled on the floor. In the corner, the monster stood, watching.
Clean this up. The next one starts tomorrow.